Hi, and welcome. My name is Lynette Alinda, and this is the Penthouse Perspective. Why have I decided to call this the Penthouse Perspective? Because I'd like to say that from the penthouse, everything is the best of the best. We get everything we want. Things happen with an ease and a flow. There's a red carpet, there's lots of magic, and there's lots of miracles. There are no limits. So welcome to the Penthouse Perspective. Today's subject is integrity. And I'd like to start with integrity because it's such an important subject. It's one that we cannot move forward in the game without, the game of life, or as I like to refer to it, the mathematical game of life. So today we're going to talk about integrity. What is it really? What does it mean to be in integrity? And what does it have to do with being honest? Most of us consider being honest to be in integrity. And that's partially true, but not completely. Oftentimes, when we're being honest, what we're actually being honest about is our opinion or our perspective. So, although honesty is a component of integrity, it is not integrity itself. Integrity is to be whole. Integrity is to be the complete you, the whole you. And if we take the origin of the word integrity, we understand that it comes from integral. And if we're going to be whole and live in integrity, then we need to have the integral part of us present. And the integral part of us is to know who and what we really are. So take, for example, your body. If you don't have a heart, if your heart isn't working, then an integral piece is missing and it's simply not going to function. You will die. Integrity is not possible without this essential component, knowing who and what we really are, that we are vibratory beings. We are energy beings having a physical experience. And if we're going to live in integrity fully and be whole, then we need to include that part of us that is integral, that part of us that is spirit, that part of us that is energy. Okay? So to live in integrity, we need to have some components present. There's certain criteria, there's certain qualities that we need to embody, that we need to embrace, that we need to live with, live by. And these qualities to be in integrity are things like being honest with yourself, never lie to yourself, self-esteem, self-respect, self-trust, self-acceptance, self-love. These are all integral, important components of integrity. If we're not living in integrity, we're going to be experiencing the opposite. For one thing, if we're not living in integrity, we will not be able to resolve conflict. We're going to experience problems everywhere we go. You won't be able to come up with a solution for any of your issues because if we're not in integrity, we literally can't move forward. Why? Because we don't have the essential keys. We also want to remember at this point that the keys to awareness, the keys to knowing who and what we really are actually vibratory keys. So integrity is not intellectual. Integrity is actually vibrational. And the vibration of integrity is generated, or the dimension of integrity is achieved or lived at, or we can be it when we embrace the components of self-esteem, self-respect, self-trust, self-love. Excuse me. So if we're not in integrity, then we will be out of balance. We will not be able to resolve conflict. We will not be living with an ease and a flow. I like to say, when in line with divine, everything goes with an ease and a flow. And that is certainly integrity. So if your life is stuck, if relationships aren't moving forward, if you're repeating cycles, then you're out of integrity, which is another way to say you're out of balance, or you have forgotten who and what you really are. That integral piece isn't present. So to begin to develop integrity, many of us don't recognize that we actually need to start to develop boundaries. We need to develop healthy boundaries that enable us to maintain self-respect, self-love, self-esteem, self-trust. And if we are able to develop and maintain healthy boundaries, then we will come eventually to a place called self-actualization, which is the power that I talk about that's present in the Penthouse perspective of life. So again, integrity means to be whole. It means to be who and what you really are, all components present and accounted for, okay? Another one of the things that I like to say is that you can't be a little bit pregnant. You either are or you aren't. So you're either in integrity or you are not in integrity. It's not a halfway thing. Sometimes we can be present with integrity, in our integrity on some subjects and not in other subjects. And that'll mean that we'll move forward in some areas and not in other areas. If we're not in integrity, we'll be experiencing conflict. Things will not move forward with an ease and a flow. Life will be difficult, and we'll often feel frustrated. We'll feel like a victim. We'll feel hard done by. We'll feel like life is really essentially pointless. And that makes sense, because without integrity, remember, the keys to the kingdom, or the keys to moving forward in life, are vibratory keys. If we do not have these keys, we cannot resolve conflict. We cannot move forward. So when we live in integrity, one of the reasons we're able to resolve conflict is because one of the components of integrity is sincerity. We have to be sincere. If we don't want to live in integrity, if we don't want to live in our truth, then we can't move forward. And that is also the first criteria needed in order to resolve conflict. So looking at integrity again from another angle, we could say integrity is to be in a state of balance. Integrity is to be in a state of wholeness, alignment, ease, and flow. This is where we feel good about ourselves. This is where we're internally powered. We are not externally driven. If we want to develop integrity, then there's a few things we're going to have to give up. We're going to have to give up self-doubt and replace it with self-trust. In order to move forward integrity, we're going to have to let go of false beliefs, thoughts, and ideas about who and what we are and about life, or we can't move forward. And another really important key for integrity is recognizing that we need to live free and independent of the good opinion of others. If we are not able to move forward without worrying about what the external world thinks of us, if we can't move forward without worrying about whether this person or that situation or this organization approves of us, then you absolutely cannot be in integrity. Integrity is truth. And I'm not talking about the truth that we experience at the subjective level. Each one of us is living a subjective, individual perspective story. And no two perspectives are alike. Each one of us, even if we're born into the same family, is born at a different time, in a different place, and holds a different perspective. So the truth that I'm talking about is not subjective truth. We can get really confused here if we think that the truth is our perspective at the individual subjective reality level. No, the truth, the way to integrity, is to remember who and what we are. We are the truth. And the reason we suffer when we're not in integrity is because we're not living in the truth of who and what we are. So at one level, the truth is subjective perspective, and it can be different for everyone there. At the highest level of awareness, the penthouse perspective, integrity, there is only one truth. There is really, truly only one of us here. So integrity asks us to essentially balance these two truths, the one that is subjective, individual perspective, and there are no two alike, and then the truth of who and what we are, which is that which unites us. We are all beings made of flesh and bone and blood. This is true for all of us. But the story that these flesh and bone and blood bodies is living or are living is not the same for all of us. It's so important to remember this. Another component of integrity is respect. Respect for ourselves and therefore respect for others. So a key for integrity is to respect the subjective, individual perspective of other beings. And we can do this while maintaining and developing healthy boundaries. Okay? In further episodes, I'm going to be talking about each one of these subjects and breaking it down. And I also encourage you to send any questions that you may have regarding this episode, and we'll talk about it in the future. So let's talk about boundaries for a moment, okay? I want to talk about boundaries, not walls. Boundaries are flexible. Boundaries can grow. Boundaries can compromise. Walls do not. Walls keep everybody out and they keep us in. And that keeps us in a nice, safe, comfortable comfort zone. Well, you can't grow there. You cannot grow there. Integrity will take you outside of your comfort zone every time. And more often than not, it will be because we are afraid to, unable to, or unaware of how to lay a boundary. To say to someone, perhaps, I don't appreciate the way that you're treating me. You are not treating me with respect. So I'm going to lay a boundary here. I'm going to lay that boundary with respect. I'm not going to be rude to you in return. I will lay that boundary with respect, but I'm also going to hold myself accountable for making sure that you do respect it. If you don't respect my boundary, I'll have to lay another boundary. So integrity is self-love, self-protection, self-awareness, and how we interact with the outside world and in our relationships. We need to start to look at whether or not we're laying boundaries that are healthy, that enable us to stay in alignment. Or are we being wishy-washy about our boundaries? Are we being, 1 minute we say yes, the next minute we say no? This is inconsistent, and inconsistency is not a component of integrity. Okay? So to move forward in integrity, to expand integrity, to become stronger in it, to live in it more, we're going to have to let go of things like false beliefs, ideas about ourselves that say that we're anything other than who and what we really are, which is the truth of who and what we are. We are divine energy beings having a human experience. We are made of love. We are made of trust. We are made of everything that the universe is made of, and we are creators. We have the ability to create, to alter, and change our reality. We are the only creature on earth that has the ability to do this. This is the truth of who and what we are. This is what we want to remember. This is what we want to lay boundaries around to protect. So to move forward, you're going to have to let go of false ideas and beliefs about who you are. If you're holding on to any story, consciously or unconsciously, even slightly, remember, you can't be a little bit pregnant, you are or you aren't. If you're holding on to any of these, even slightly, then it's going to hold you back altogether or simply slow you down. So false beliefs about ourselves will be anything that leads to separation. Remember, to be in integrity is to be whole. If we are practicing thoughts, beliefs, ideas, actions, and choices that take us away from who and what we really are, we have come out of balance, we're out of integrity. Our job then becomes to fall back into balance, to move back into alignment where the ease and the flow is. This is not easy, and as I said, we will be expanding on this subject for quite a while. So moving forward with integrity, we begin to expand, we become stronger, we become clearer. And one of the most powerful side effects is intuition. And this is my favorite. Intuition is to have an inner knowing without conscious there's a big word, without conscious reasoning or logical thought. We will have a knowing. We will just intuitively know. We will feel. Remember, we're energy beings. When we live in integrity, we honor that energy. Remembering energy never lies. Our intuition speaks through vibration, which is energy. It speaks from the higher self through to the physical body, through our feeling system. Not tactile touch, but the vibratory feeling system where we feel love for someone or where we may feel anger, where we feel our feelings. Okay, that is the body that our intuition speaks with. If that feeling body is in alignment, if that is a being that is practicing self-respect, self-love, self-trust, self-esteem, and therefore healthy boundaries, we will automatically begin to develop stronger and stronger intuition. This becomes possible because through healthy boundaries, self-trust, and self-respect, the vibratory frequency is authentic. We can genuinely read it and interpret it without conscious reasoning or logical thought. This is what I practice every day. Every single time I'm doing one of these episodes or I'm working with a client, I am tuning into the vibratory truth of the situation, of who and what we are, of the circumstances that I'm in. So through that intuitive body, I'm able to pick up a lot of extra information that is not accessible any other way. So integrity, practiced consistently over time, develops intuition. Intuition is a vibratory thing. We gain access to intuition through the feeling body. If we are not authentic, if we're not listening to our feelings truthfully, honestly, practicing self-love and not giving ourselves away or doing things that we feel we need to do to gain other people's approval, then we will automatically be in alignment and intuition will increase from there. If you had keys to your house, would you give them to a burglar? I think not. None of us would. Divine, creation itself, does not give keys to burglars either. We have to practice integrity in order to gain access to these higher levels of awareness. And you don't get to practice that once in a while. You're not given the keys, you're not given access unless you prove that you are going to do this consistently. We are not asked to do it perfectly. No, a very, very valuable tip around integrity is to remember this. We only need to do our best to do our best. We're not going to get it perfect every time. And in fact, I suggest that you let go of perfection altogether because it isn't a component of integrity. We are not here to be perfect beings. That is not integrity. We're here to have an experience that is human. And sometimes that's messy. So trial and error are massive, massive issues when it comes to integrity. So if we honor integrity in each moment, right now, all we have to do is worry about doing our best in this moment. That's it. We don't have to go beyond that. Tuning into the vibratory awareness coming through the intuitive body enables us to have a higher awareness, higher access to what's going on in the situation. You're just going to know. When I was a little girl, I called it good jiggy jiggy and bad jiggy jiggy. I knew that I wanted to follow the good jiggy jiggy and I wanted to move away from the bad jiggy jiggy. So intuition will start to come through subtly at first and increasing power as you maintain integrity and clarity over time. So each moment, as I'm facing an experience, or perhaps as I'm reading for a client, I will be able to feel what's coming through. I'll feel what is coming off of that person, and I'm going to be able to determine whether it is something that leads to alignment, ease and flow, expansion, unity, solutions, or if it is something that moves us away from it. Okay? So I'd like to now talk about the 3 criteria to resolve conflict. And this will be the 3 criteria needed to resolve conflict between ourselves and another party or within ourselves. And this is something I want to talk about because it's key to integrity. The 3 components to resolving conflict are, number 1, and most importantly, sincerity. If we do not have sincerity, we have not hit the correct vibratory frequency to gain access to solutions. If you're just going to fool around, if you're just going to piss around, well, the universe isn't going to spend its time paying attention. Why? Because it's a waste of time until we hit the correct vibratory frequency. So if you really don't want integrity, if you want to remain a victim of your story, then don't start. Don't start until you really do mean it and you really do want it. So sincerity is the first key to become able to recognize the truth for ourselves, within ourselves, but also outside of ourselves. If you want to resolve conflict with someone else, you have to be sincere about that. Okay? The second criteria, which will become available if the first criteria of sincerity is there, the second criteria is, are all parties considering all parties equal? If we want to resolve conflict with ourselves first, and we have low self-esteem, if we've got false beliefs and ideas running in our story, telling us that we don't deserve, that we don't measure up, we'll never have the courage and the conviction to step into integrity. So number 2, do we consider ourselves to be of equal value to anyone else outside of us? If we have that self-esteem, that self-love, and that self-respect, when we go to resolve conflict, the power dynamic will be equal. We will not have to power over or bully or dominate to get what we want. And we will not need to be a victim or needy or powerless in order to manipulate and get what we want. So number 1, when we're sincere, you're now at the vibratory frequency of truth, and the solutions will start to come, which then makes number 2 possible. All parties consider all parties equal. Leads to number 3. Are we capable and able? Do we actually have the tools to resolve conflict? If we have developed integrity with ourselves, along that journey, we will also develop the tools that we need in order to resolve conflict with someone or something outside of us. So this is the mirror effect, and it's wonderful to recognize that it's kind of like 2 for 1. You work on developing healthy boundaries for yourself through self-love, self-trust, self-respect, then you're automatically going to have that mirrored in the world outside of you. Another thing that we want to watch for, which can often throw us off, is that as we begin this journey into integrity, what seems to happen is that everything that we thought we were going to resolve gets worse. It gets bigger. And that's actually positive. That's a sign that your moving into integrity is working. And why is it a sign? Because wherever there is a lack of integrity in your story, in your experience, that is rising up to be released. To be in integrity means integral. It means to integrate, not to reject, not to resist, but to overcome, to rise above through practicing the truth of who and what we are. We're able to take a challenge and integrate it through transmutation, through acceptance. We transcend. So integrity allows us to transcend. Providing we learn how to do this with ourselves first, it automatically becomes a symptom, a byproduct in the external world. As we move through this, though, we want to recognize the problem starts to look like it's actually bigger before it gets better. But don't worry, that's not what's really happening. What's really happening is that the universe is noticing that you're ready to move forward and that you're doing it with integrity. So the universe is saying, okay, they're ready to move forward. Let's bring up any pieces that need to be resolved, that need to be integrated. And this is why we want to practice self-love. If we practice judgments, opinions, and expectations here, we are not going to be able to move forward and integrate. Judgments, opinions, and expectations create resistance. They create separation from who and what we are. Remember, there really is only one of us here. So conflict resolution is essential to ascension. It is essential to expanding our awareness. Okay? So we've covered a lot today. I realize that it's a really deep subject, and I'd like to encourage anyone who has any questions or who would like clarification to please send me an email to lynettelinda.com, and I'll be happy to address it on the next episodes coming up. I'll be back next week to talk about this subject a little bit further and to start to break down the different components. Next week, I'd like to start to talk about boundaries, because boundaries are so essential. If we want to be whole, we need to have healthy boundaries in order to maintain that wholeness. If we don't practice self-respect, if we abandon ourselves, if we give our power over to someone or something outside of us, we cannot be whole. Because in giving our power away, in abandoning ourselves, we essentially create a leak in our energy. And as such, we're leaking all over the place. Our power is not whole, it is not complete, and we can't move forward. Okay? So once again, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the support that everyone is sending in. I'm so grateful to be here. I'm so grateful to be sharing this information. It truly is my deepest intention to raise awareness, to raise consciousness on the planet so that we can all learn to enjoy this paradise and play together. So today's prayer I'd like to share with you is this. Please take a moment, take a breath. And if you feel comfortable, close your eyes and just listen, please. Integrity, to be whole, asks you to honor the relationship with you, the you who is presence, the you who is the divine. Honor that relationship. Honor the relationship with the you who knows. Honor that relationship. Honor the relationship with the you that is immortal. Honor the relationship with the you that is eternal. Honor that relationship, and integrity will be your gift. It will be your freedom, and it will be your reward. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you next week.